Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And we're going to talk about the decay of the mainstream comic book industry. Finally, Heidi MacDonald and friends have given us permission to say things are not so good.
But not really.
Yeah, it's a lot of doublespeak, and they don't want to admit that they're wrong. That they've spent the last 4 or 5 years attacking YouTubers, attacking people in the industry that maybe have different political views than them, for speaking truth, that the comic book industry is in decline.
They're salty. No, it is, but not because those people are right. It's for other reasons. Trust us, bro.
Yeah, trust us. Things are fine. Because basically, they look, long and short of it is, Heidi MacDonald and these comic book journalists look like freaking morons because everybody has been saying, everybody knows the comic book industry, the mainstream comic book industry, periodicals, the direct market. We're not talking about Manga. We're not talking about Scholastic. We're talking about the comic book shop scene, that whole scene. It's imploding. And a lot of the reason it's imploding is the comics aren't very good, and the creators that are still left that haven't jumped ship for something else, they're spending a lot of time on social media attacking customers, which is also driving customers away. And we're reaching the end of the line here.
It's not them.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Get it, woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to shopclownfish.com if you want to buy comic books outside the direct market. You can pick up Crimson Wren and previously on Clownfish TV. These are both in stock, published by Clownfish Studios.
Stick it to Heidi. Ironically, funny story, okay? Back when we were doing Crimson Wren the first time, do you remember this? Heidi MacDonald was one of the ones that were falling all over the idea and thought it was a great comic.
Yeah, we had a lot of people from that scene, 10, 12 years ago that wanted to see this book get made until the switch got flipped, right? And that's when it was no longer cool to be a middle-aged couple doing comics. We weren't trendy enough. But
we were doing Crimson. It was Crimson Wren.
Yeah,
and we tried to run a campaign for it. And honestly, the term kick trolled came from Neon. Because that's what he called it when people were donating a bunch of money and then pulling it. And so we actually canceled the campaign. But she was all about the campaign initially.
Yeah, it's a long story.
So we knew we were talking about comics then.
Yeah,
we now we don't because she says so.
Tried to run a crowdfunder for it. And yeah, somebody put in. That's one of the problems with like Kickstarter and stuff is you can put funny money in. Somebody put in like 10 grand to get funded, and then they just like magically pulled it out. It's like, what the hell? So it's like, this is a joke. We're not doing this. Anyway. The book exists now. The book has done significantly better, thank you, than it would have done 10 or 12 years ago.
Truth.
It's done very, very well. So thank you very, very much, guys, for backing it. Let's talk about the comic book industry, because we basically walked away from it in 2014, 2015, when it became very apparent that there's no damn money in the mainstream comic book industry.
So they're all fighting over the industry, and I'm like, for what?
Scraps. They're fighting over scraps. It's like, I mean, it's really sad.
I'm the queen of the shit.
Pretty much.
You're supposed to be the shit, not be,
Well, speaking of being the queen of the shit, I'm seeing a lot of the usual suspects from the anti Comicsgate people or whatever out there on social media now asking for money because they're not getting gigs anymore. But
shocker.
Comics are fine, guys. Everything is fantastic. All these shops have been closing this year, including a lot of very notable shops. Jim Hanley's Universe, and we had Flying Colors Comics in Concord, which I used to go to. That is apparently closing down too. And we have shops that have been in business for decades closing this year. But things are fan-freaking-tastic because Dogman books are selling really well at the Scholastic
back to that
fair.
piece of art on that one article that they were leading with this thing. Okay,
that's Watchmen.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. Here's the thing, though. It's not wrong, though. Each time that happened, you lost more people. They fell off. And it never came back the way it never came back fully each time it fell off some. It came back close sometimes, but it never came back fully. So each time, people were saying it for good reason.
Yeah, this is actually true. It is true because the 50s, comics readership numbers, I would say probably peaked in the 50s and 60s, and we had, because it was cheap, disposable entertainment. It was 10 cents, 15 cents, whatever, and everybody read comics. Every kid read comics. They read them, threw them out, and that was it. And then we had the 70s, and there was a huge shakeout there, and then the whole issue with DC Comics that led to the creation of the direct market, and then in the 90s, we had the speculator bubble, which burst. And then I would say that what we're seeing now, and I'm agreeing with you there, is that comics basically had a heart attack in the 90s, and it never fully recovered. And what we're seeing now is basically kind of the long tail, like it was never going to be 100% again. I mean, we've had some ups and downs. We've had some big events. We've had whatever. And everybody kept pointing to superhero movies being like, this is it, man. This is our ticket. Then they realized after a couple of years, they're like, wait a second. The superhero movies are doing fine. The toys are selling okay-ish, well, except for the new ones. But nobody's buying the comics.
I would argue even that since like the early 2000s, when we started getting the movies like we are now. Yeah. Even like, when did the Spider-Mans and stuff start? Was it in the 90s?
That was early 2000s.
Okay, 2000s. Yeah. I can't remember. It all blurs together when you get this old. Anyway, you're not that old. The early 2000s. I think that initially the movies were what helped keep it going because people forgot about these characters, and a lot of these characters, like Guardians of the Galaxy characters, for example, they were not the A-list characters. A lot of the characters they brought to the forefront now were not the A-list characters. Then they weren't selling. So it did bring attention to them, and that people started to get interested, and they wanted to read the old comics, and they've based like some of the like Endgame, some of the things like that, some of the different Avengers things and all that on comic books that came before it. So people were excited, and they wanted to read the old stuff. It wasn't even the new stuff or the newer stuff that was those characters. And then they started like not having the characters match the characters, and I think that's when people were like, I don't care. And then you shoved it down people's throats so much they didn't want it. And then there was the whole thing where you changed everybody, so no one even recognizes them. And you couldn't even get like Captain America. You had to get America Chavez. And people are like, who the fuck's America Chavez? That kind of thing.
It's pretty bad.
Oh, yes, let me get to this little dipshit.
Yeah, this is, who is writing this? This is
some little dipshit.
Oh, Brian Hibbs. Oh, okay. Yeah, that explains
I stand by what I said.
Yeah, this is the guy who I think bought Gary from Nerdrotic's shop, his old shop in San Francisco, and he's had all kinds of financial problems because nobody's buying comics in his shop. Sorry.
But he puts himself in his own quotes as if it was a big quote, an important quote.
So, yeah, apparently, I don't know if Heidi's off for the week or what's going on because of the holidays, but he's writing this article, and he does write articles occasionally on here. He does kind of the state of the industry. But he's basically like, yeah, there are problems, but, we're not going to agree with those Comicsgate people, those people who are calling us the cancel pigs, because it has nothing to do with wokeness. But back to what you said. No, it has nothing to do with wokeness per se, but the wokeness is what leads them to change the character's sexual orientation. What leads them to change the character's gender, to swap out the straight male sellable character.
Literally take every character in Marvel. I'll say Marvel because that was before the MCU, but the MCU made them popular, and then you literally took all the characters and made them some other iteration of themselves. With gender swaps, race swaps, sexual orientation swaps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm thinking more like the G.I. Joe debacle and all that shit. And people were like, you literally went you hired people who were cheap and who are easy in more ways than one. And you hired them, and then you let them do what they wanted because you thought that was the right thing to do to make sure that you're hitting your DEI goals and all that crap. And you let them do whatever they wanted, and you didn't watch what they were doing because you were under the impression that Twitter was real and that they were actually the voice of the people, when in fact that was not the case. And then it bit you in the ass because you just let them write fanfics and let them do it cheaply, and then you lost all your audience. And then they go out and attack the audience and tell them not to buy comics. So they're like, no problem. No problem, comic. I won't buy your comic.
Okay, so this is coming, and we'll get into this other article here. I think I mentioned some of this in a previous video. They've only got 12 comments on this. I don't
think anybody reads the beat anymore.
They don't.
Except for us.
Comics aren't dying, but they're changing, and that's got people scared.
The Beat who sold it out to somebody else and had to buy it back because they didn't even want it. Well, Ironforge didn't even want it.
No, they're making a whopping $800 a month on Patreon.
They're like, we're losing money. You can have it back.
So this is like, look, Brian, you're dumb. You're dumb. I'm sorry. This is a stupid.
I'm surprised he stopped holding his pee-pee long enough to come on here and write an article.
Oh my God. This is a stupid, like, some people love this guy. I mean, he's got some good insight into numbers about, sales numbers or the book scan numbers and stuff like that. This is a really bad
But the book scan numbers are out there for everybody.
Yeah, well, no, he, I believe, had access to them because he subscribed to it or something. I forget what it was.
So
again, you can do it yourself.
That too. You
but
just subscribe to it.
Comics people are poor. They don't want to pay. They don't want to pay for that shit.
When he did that was so special. I'm like, but I don't understand because anybody can have access to that.
Okay, so this is stupid. Anyone who wants to suggest the market's problems have to do with comics being too woke is a total screwball. Full stop. The market always determines what it wants. And
it's determining what it wants, and it doesn't want that shit.
And the things that are not engaging to the audience always go away in favor of things that do engage. Okay, so why, again, back to the Avengers, why do you take the most popular lineup and sideline them and bring them in with replacement characters that destroy the sales at the height of the popularity of the MCU? What would have been a slam dunk if Disney actually had two fucking brain cells to rub together, if Axel Alonso, who was in charge at the time, had two brain cells to rub together, would be, let's have the characters in the comics be the same characters that are in the movies, and then people will go see the movie and then they'll want to buy comic books about those characters. But no.
But then, even when they brought Ms. Marvel and then, some of these other characters, and even Captain Marvel to some extent, and they kept having to cancel them because no one bought them, instead of being like, oh, you know what? This isn't working. No. The dipshits told you, just do it again and, make it stick. And it still hasn't stuck. Because the people that are telling you what to do to get it, like these idiots who don't know what the hell they're talking about.
The market always determines what it wants.
You are correct.
Those are your words,
you
Brian.
You are correct. It does. And they've been telling you for a while it doesn't want this
years.
Shit.
They don't want Captain Marvel as she is now. They don't want Ms. Marvel. They don't want replacement characters.
The no good nicks that you're calling about, which I don't even use the term woke very often. I don't like it. But the no good nicks that you're referring to, I mean, some of them I think do go too far. However, that being said, they were just been pointing out the obvious for a while now, which is this stuff isn't what these characters were. Your core audience doesn't want these characters. Your core audience isn't buying these characters. This quote unquote new audience that you want isn't buying this shit either because they don't have any money. And you just, and it's a shit show now and your numbers suck because you done did this. That isn't untrue. That's accurate. Whether you want to hear it or not doesn't make it untrue.
The market always determines what it wants. I'm going to keep throwing that back in your face because we're going to see examples time and time and time again of the market rejecting what's being pushed on them.
Go back up for a second. I love it. Absolutely anyone trying to push the Comicsgate agenda. Here's the thing. Even if you point out the obvious, which is, shit, the numbers are down. They label you as Comicsgate. Yes. We found this out firsthand because we didn't even know what Comicsgate was. And because Neon dared to say, hey, Marvel numbers aren't looking too hot. What's going on? Literally, people started going, blocking us. We're like, who the fuck? What's going on? Because when we got labeled comics, we're always labeled Comicsgate and different. Somehow we're Gamergate too, even though we weren't part of that at all. Just because you don't agree doesn't mean that you're Comicsgate. And anybody who points out the obvious isn't a bad actor who simply doesn't understand how markets or creative processes work. Excuse me, bitch. You're from marketing and we have a comics background. I'm pretty sure we understand marketing, market, and creative process pretty damn well. Again, we had a comic that Heidi was all about. She loved it until we were no good nicks.
Yeah, that's okay.
But what do we know? But what's he do with creative? Oh, right. He owns a comic shop and writes this shit because he pays for comic numbers.
That he bought off of Gary from Nerdrotic, the guy who coined the phrase, Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales. That's what he did.
This next part. And such people should be shunned and ignored. You're literally...
Cancel pig. You're a cancel pig.
If you don't agree with me, you should be shunned and ignored. So anybody who points out the fucking obvious... You made these changes to characters that were ridiculous and pointless and nobody liked them and the audience stopped buying them and you're talking your core audience and everybody turned away from it and you fired people who could sell books in favor of people no one even knew about because they were cheap and they were, the right demographic. You didn't sell books and now you're in trouble. But if you point that out, you should be shunned and ignored because how dare you tell the truth? Instead, you should listen to him.
We're not cancel pigs. We're not calling for anyone to be shunned and ignored. How dare you, Mark Millar, call us cancel pigs? Oh.
This flat out said, shunned and ignored. Oink, oink, Brian. Oink, oink. I smell biscuit. No, it's Brian.
Oh my God. So look, I can't with this. I can't. So basically, yeah, this has nothing to do with woke. Well, those decisions were made because of woke, and this decision was made, I believe, in part because of woke. He says, I believe that most of our current problems come down to the loss of institutional knowledge. Yeah, a lot of the experienced, seasoned, middle-aged white guys that you didn't want in the comic book industry anymore, you pushed them out. You made them feel unwelcome, and they took their institutional knowledge with them.
Well, I also want to point out they're a bunch of racist, misogynist bigots because people that are not white, straight, or male also read comics, don't like these changes, and you just step over them completely and tell them that you're doing it for them. Shut up, I'm doing it for you. And I love how he puts this quote over here, its own quote, like it's important in bright red.
I'm going to pull my own quote.
I got one for you. Brian smells like bacon.
Oh,
quote.
God. So he's going on about short-term thinking. Again, this is another thing that YouTubers have said for years. Not the color or gender or sexuality of a fictional character.
Oh, they always say fictional character. They have to make sure they say that. It's like life or death any other time. But then when they're trying to do this, they're like, but it's a fictional character. Why do you care? I don't know. Why did you care?
Okay, so now we get down. It's like, this is a cultural war thing. I have to disclaim this. He is afraid of getting canceled because he's saying the comics are shit and they're not selling. Why are the comics shit, Brian? The comics are shit because of, well, the color and gender and sexuality of fictional characters. Yeah, that's part of it. It's not all of it. Sometimes we have characters that haven't been changed or still being written in a shitty fashion.
But they've always had different sexualities and genders and colors of characters, and people didn't care then because they were good characters who were their own characters.
When you make Tim Drake all hot for his best friend, all of a sudden, out of the blue, when you make Bobby Drake, no relation, you make Bobby Drake, Iceman, flamboyantly gay, when he has no history of that ever in the comics. Okay, it's totally about the color, gender, or sexuality. When you push out the straight white male characters and replace them with stand-ins that are two-dimensional. Now, sometimes those stand-ins actually kind of come in their own. We can argue about Miles Morales, whatever. But, we've seen it time and time again. Every big event always ends with, well, these old men, we're going to get rid of them, these old white dudes, and we're going to bring in these diverse characters. But it has nothing to do with woke. It has nothing to do with gender or sexuality. We're going to change the sexual identities of all of these established characters with decades of history and source material that you can look at. Like, oh, look, Bobby Drake's only dated women. In fact, he's dated a lot of women.
Did you see his next sentence? Trust a person whose ability to literally feed and house his family is solely dependent upon being able to sell comic books, not create them, but sell them. Culture war issues aren't even a top 20 problem for the comic industry. Trust this person who literally can feed and house my family on selling comics as well. You're full of shit, Brian.
So let me get this straight. So he's going on about hey, comics in the culture war have nothing to do with what's going on. Comics are in the shitter, but he spends the first 4 or 5 paragraphs talking about the culture war shit.
Yeah, but they don't listen to the culture war. But, I can sell enough comics in a big area at a well-known shop that I didn't start, that's had decades or, of customers. So you listen to me because I know more than you. It's like, oh, bitch.
You are playing the fiddle on the deck of the Titanic here. I want to be very clear. Almost every single person working in comics is someone who loves the medium very much. They work very hard on it. You can't say anything. In no way do I believe that anyone is deliberately setting out to make mediocre comics. No, but when people are creating their own fan fiction with established characters,
yes,
they're making mediocre comics. I'm sorry. They are. We've got Max Visagi out there saying, I pitched a Superboy transitioning to Supergirl, and golly, Connor Kent just happens to look exactly like me. You can't say that they ain't sad to make a mediocre comic.
I Am Starfire? Oh, no, was the one other Batman where,
Oh, Batman's Crazy Rich Asian now because I can't write a white... Yeah. I'm sorry. They set out, no editor in the right mind. Again, the loss of institutional knowledge because you push these people out for various reasons. no editor, no good editor in their right mind would take a look at this and be like, yeah, hey, this is like totally like you. Yeah, you can do whatever the fuck you want to do with these characters because I don't care.
But they can't.
They're not mine.
That's why they're doing GoFundMe's like crazy because they're not being hired anymore because they've already proven they can't sell shit.
So he's like basically like, oh yeah, there's too many comics. There are too many bad comics.
There's too many bad comics. Yes, agreed.
We have to. Well, no. What's going on is that people are buying fewer. There are fewer people buying comics, so you basically have to get more blood out of the rocks. They're left, right?
Wait, this is his answer. What everybody else has been saying. You have to sell fewer, better comics to more people.
But it has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to honest. It's like, no, you know what would sell fewer, better? Look at Three Jokers. I think Three Jokers was a huge hit for DC. It was probably the last big hit they had. And it was by established creators just telling a Batman story that people wanted to read, and they sold a bunch of copies. But again, everybody's leaving comics because it's a hostile environment. The people that actually could create these events, they're attacking Mark Millar now. Mark Millar could get him out of this mess, but why the fuck should he?
He brings up an article Heidi did, like right after they all got called cancel pigs and shit. And she's in there making digs. We'll have to get to it later, but she's in there making digs about him too. Oh, I love how he just keeps quoting himself as if it was he was an import.
He had to close one of his shops. He's been ranting about how comic retailers are getting screwed over because of distribution. These corporations, Brian, they do not care about you. And you can love comics, but hey, man, you should know comics doesn't love you back. That's an old saying, right? Everybody knows that. Comics don't love you back. I guarantee you, Gary from Nerdrotic is making a shit ton more money talking about stupid shit like this on his YouTube channel than you're making it in your shop. But,
wait. Because, albeit anecdotal, I'm hearing more and more retailers saying our current trajectory of sales has me thinking Q1 is going to be truly brutal. I might have to close or downsize and move if I still have a store by summer. Okay, that's what he's hearing. And he's bragging about, well, I can take care of my family. So doesn't sound like you can much longer.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a dick. But like,
I'm not saying I want him to lose a shop.
I don't want anybody to lose, but there have been a lot of people losing their shops after decades.
But it's completely fine. There's nothing right. There's nothing going on. Comicsgate isn't right. Everything's fine here because I make a living selling other people's shit. I don't make anything, but I sell everybody else's stuff.
Who the fuck cares if they're right or wrong? Right now, like, the industry needs to shut the fuck up. Everybody needs to get the fuck off of Twitter because you're spending way too much damn time on there starting pissing matches. Sit down, figure out how to fix this. The thing is that I don't think there's any financial incentive for Disney or Warner Brothers to fix it. I don't think they care. Comic books to them, it's just licensed crap. They don't care. Comics could implode. The direct market could implode tomorrow and they don't give a shit. In fact, Disney might look at it now like, well, our superhero movies aren't doing very well. Why the hell are we keeping the comic book publisher around?
Well, he keeps going. I run a diversely stocked store that is as untethered to corporate IP as I could humanly steer it for decades. Okay, that I have this very strong method of calling blah 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 blah. He was going on about, but I'm telling you, my sales are way off what they were pre-pandemic 2019.
You sound like Comicsgate.
But you know what? But I take care of my family and I do it solely on selling comics. And so I know more than you. So when you don't have your comic shop anymore, are you still going to know more than us? Because if your reasoning of why your opinion matters more is because you sell comics and you make your living this way. If you go into the red and you have problems and you have to shut stuff down, are you still going to, does that mean you're not an authority anymore? Because by your logic, telling people, your opinion matters more because you're an authority because you solely do that.
None of these people are authorities anymore because they don't understand where things are going. They don't want to admit that they're wrong.
They know more than you. You don't understand the market and creativity, even though he makes nothing. You don't understand these things. He does.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm hungry for a ham sandwich.
Okay, whatever. Look, I love this. Nobody's going for anybody to be canceled, but we should shun these people.
I know.
Holy shit. Just shut the fuck up.
Everybody comes in the shop. He doesn't know if they think that stuff's too, one way or not. He doesn't know that. Are you just going to tell those customers who think it's going too far to leave your store? Please do. Then you'll shut them faster.
I don't want comic shops to go out of business, but
I'm starting to think this this one he might need to.
I think, yeah, if you haven't pivoted, and the reason you're going out of business is the publishers aren't giving you stuff to sell. Why are they not giving you stuff that sells? Because they've chased off their audience. Why have they chased off their audience? Because of wokeness. In part because of wokeness. I know you don't like to hear that. You don't want to think that, but that's when the damage really started.
I think they were going down for a while, but that really hit
2016, 2017. They said 2017 was like the worst year for Marvel Comics ever.
But that's when they started this shit.
That's when they started this shit. I mean, it started a couple years before that, but they really went all in like 2017. And then DC was still kind of holding the line. And then after Dan DiDio got gone, again, you pushed him out. Institutional knowledge, lost. He was apparently the only guy that was keeping his shit together over there. Once he got gone, all hell broke loose. Now everybody's gay and for no reason, and characters are getting swapped for no reason. They're having drag shows in Smallville. What the fuck is happening? They've got a bathtub sexting scene in the middle of fucking Superman, the Superman Action Comics.
I just think it's funny though, because 10-1, because we know certain people that run the beat were involved in allegedly involved in these, back scene whisper network bullshit. 10-1, this person was as well. Don't know that for a fact, just saying, wouldn't surprise me. And if that's the case, you hasten your own demise. Like you guys went out of your way for this shit. You kind of reaping what you sow now. And y'all been busted. And y'all been busted doing it. And I'm not saying this person specifically, but the people that were behind it caused the fall. And now they're like screaming their heads off when they're being caught, with evidence that they were the ones behind the whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. You don't have to like the comics gate people, You don't have to like the YouTubers. You don't have to like the alt-right Nazis or any of the...
Well, it's funny because they'll think we're all right. We don't even Republican.
Fuck off.
Moron.
You don't have to like those people. But when everybody who makes these observations gets dogpiled, because I think
common sense.
They honestly think it's like a cult. I swear to God, it's like a cult. Like if you question the leaders of the cult and you're like, hey, we got a problem here. This doesn't make any damn sense. Shut up. You're a Nazi and you're a bad person and we're going to excommunicate you. Oink. That's how they kept everybody in line. And they've kept everybody on the deck of the Titanic for the last 5 or 7 years. And here it is. We're at the end of the line, dude. So if you guys knew so much, you didn't see this coming. You didn't see any of this coming. You just didn't want to admit that it was coming because you didn't want them to be right. You didn't want those people to be right. So you went in the opposite direction, even though they were right. And again, you don't have to agree with them on politics. You don't have to think that they're nice people or whatever. But, hard facts are hard facts. Comics is in a shitty place right now.
Well, even tomorrow, if they would start turning everything around and going back to like making characters who they were and everything else, and making new characters who are diverse for that audience or whatever, and they would just go or bringing back the old characters who were diverse begin with, but that you said never happened, and you would start doing that, and you would just put comics back to where they were and where your audience wanted to be. I don't think your audience is going to come back because they're so salty and pissed off that you done insulted them for years, and if they questioned anything, you guys went after them like, oh, your comics getting blah 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 blah. And, even if it wasn't true, just because they asked a simple question, they're not going to come back because they're just going to give you a big fuck you. They're off going to buy in Manga or other people's stuff.
Yeah, Manga doesn't talk back. Manga's it's cheap, it's easy to find. They're not doing stupid shit with the characters. It's usually creator owned. They work with the publisher, but the creator is in charge of the manga. And you don't have these like ridiculous changes because you're changing your creative lineup every couple of months. It's usually like one creator working on a manga, sometimes for decades. So you're going to get consistency. And I think that's it. I think comic sales, which Heidi brings up here about comics being fucking-tastic. They are changing.
She uses the ICV2 numbers, but the thing is, a lot of the reasons that they're so high was manga.
And
they were, I don't know if they were rolling crowdfunders into this one, but
they are.
Oh, they are.
Yeah,
they started doing that just a couple of years ago when they started rolling the crowdfunders in, and they started including manga into their numbers. Of course, it went through the roof.
Yeah, so manga and crowdfunders, yeah, that's where people are going to for their comics. They're leaving the direct market behind. They don't want to deal with the drama. A lot of comic shops, the ones that are in business, ones we know, they went a couple of years ago, even before the pandemic, they decided they were going to drop new comics because they couldn't sell them. And they only sell back issues, you know. You lost your readers to manga, and you lost the kids to manga, and you have no control over that. None. And I'm sorry.
They'd rather read Dog Man than whatever kids' books you're putting out.
They'd rather read dog shit than the stuff. Can you, I mean, seriously. So for like $4 or $5, you can buy a badly drawn, badly written comic with characters are written out of character.
20-some pages.
With 20-some pages, characters are written out of character from what they've been historically or how they're portrayed in TV. And it can scream at you. It's like paying for a chick tract. You know, the chick tracks where they leave them in the door, a religious tract that screams at you about what an awful person you are. That's what it's like. It's like paying for a chick tract from some far left activist to scream at you using your favorite characters after they run them through the mud. Mm-hmm. You know, like who fuck wants that? Who the fuck wants that?
Or for 10, you could just get a whole soft cover Dogman book and be happy.
Yeah. You can get Dogman. You can get One Piece.
Oh yeah, you get manga.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we gotta wrap this up.
I think we're gonna wrap this up. I just think it's like, I mean, there's so much we could go on here, but it's just like they're scratching their heads. What's going on? We don't understand. Maybe comics are bad. They know what the fuck is going on.
Saying that one hand,
they
but
know
being
what
like,
the fuck is going on.
Shun those people.
Shun those people.
I guess to shun you too, because you're saying the exact same thing.
They already have. The comics readers, comics fans have already shunned the direct market, a lot of them, and they're definitely shunning websites like Comics Beat because they've been lied to for years. Like, yeah, the sky has fucking fallen. I'm sorry. The sky has fallen. Here's a fucking piece of the sky. It's just like mainstream media now. You know, everything that was a conspiracy theory a year or two ago is now being proven to be true. It's like, I'm sorry, guys. This wasn't anybody trying to piss on your Cheerios. And yeah, maybe some people were very gruff in how they said it. But the reality is the comics are completely fucked right now.
You're supposed to just only tell them the truth if you say it nicely?
Exactly. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Well, we have to make sure we don't hurt anybody's feelings. It's like, you know what's going to hurt their feelings? Having to go out to fucking social media, beg for food money when, you know, some of these people begging for food money had freaking Netflix deals. What the fuck happened to that? And they're out there begging for food money because they were promised a career in comics because comics were fine. Comics were fine. They never bothered retraining to go do something else because comics were fine. As long as you're the right kind of person, you're going to have a career in comics forever because comics are fine, everybody. You lied. You did a huge fucking disservice to everybody working in this industry. Not just the fans, but also these creators you're claiming to want to protect. They're fucked now because you lied to them for years and told them it was all fantastic and everything was looking up. And they believed you.
And so were the people that were around for years that you kicked out to
you
put
kicked
these
them
people
out.
in.
Loss of institutional knowledge. You fucking kicked the people that knew what the fuck they were doing out the fucking door.
Yep.
That's how you lost.
You can't say that unless you're nice about it. So Brian, sweetie, you wrote a lot of words here, and that's good that you used a lot of words, but you're still full of poo-poo.
Oink, oink, motherfucker.
That's not being nice, but okay.
I am not nice, but you know what? We get shit done. Are we going to wrap this up?
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.